Listen, let's be truthful, right? If you go back, right, into your memory and what's being taught, right? If you just listen to it, man, the average person back then in Jesus' time period couldn't read. So if Jesus is having an argument with them about the Old Testament and this and that and that and this and that and that, and they trying to figure out if Jesus is the one spoken of in the Old Testament and this and that and that and that and that and that. Daggone, man, the average person couldn't read, but that's not true today. You can read the story. Knowledge has increased. So you can read the story and you can define the difference between Ham, Shem, and Japheth. The story is about three brothers. And Ham became the father of Africa. So that means Africa has a story from the beginning of God creating the heavens and the earth all the way into Revelations when God makes a new heaven and a new earth. This is real talk, right? Right? And we have an opportunity today to actually read the book for what the book says, because the people back then when Jesus was talking to them couldn't read. Come on, folks. He's telling them, he's telling the leaders. You know, the average Joe couldn't read, period. You already know that. They wouldn't read. He's telling the government, the priests, the Pharisees, he's telling the royal, right? The leaders. Man, y'all have misinterpreted the Old Testament. Totally misinterpreted. And they fixated on who he is. Well, if you would have read the Old Testament, they would have known who he is. So even if Jesus would tell them who he was, they still wouldn't have believed it because they didn't read the book. They didn't read the book. That's what Jesus is having in the argument. You've misinterpreted. You rob God. Somebody said they rob God. Whew. And that's true if you take the words of a holy book, right, that's been given and totally adulterated, aware or unaware. It's a book. This shouldn't be no way that a book with papers and pamphlets and there should be no reason why it should be not interpreted correctly unless intelligence was a factor, right? Something impeded the intelligence is the factor. And Jesus is having this argument, spiritually discerned. Jesus is having this argument. A Greek-speaking Egyptian, born on the wise, speaking to the Romans and the Jews to fulfill prophecy to coming out of Egypt. And had to go to Egypt, man, because of the chaos. And he was safe with Africa, since they say in Egypt is Africa. We can debate about that. But at least let's get the theme of the story correct about who your boy Jesus is and get some more characteristics about his power and his divine divinity, right? Especially if it's gearing at his divine divinity is coming from Ham, Africa, and not from Shem and Japheth. All right, let me give you an example, right? Because you got to remember the theme is there's a issue with Paul and the government, thinking that, and Paul got some power. He got that light power. You got to remember, okay? Let me give you an example. Let's watch this real quick, give you an example of what's going on from a movie standpoint, right? Because Paul got hit with that light, and Paul got power. And he was able to go and blind somebody so they couldn't see the sun. And there's a story about the sun and light concerning Paul and Jesus. Seriously, right? And this is all stemming from Africa, Egypt, sun worshipers. It matches, right? As we keep going through the story, you'll see that what I'm saying is true. But let me show you this power, though.
form. I can feel it. All your strength. You look great. Is this your true form? They say that you are dangerous. Don't understand. With that amount of power, you could defeat even the Omni-King. Join me, and let's fight for the freedom of mankind. We will give freedom to all mankind together. We will see our dreams come true. Isn't it wonderful?
Now, why is all this important? Why is this all very important? Because if you're looking, right, if you look at this video, right, it's about the Pope. They said Peter was the first Pope. Well, if Peter the first Pope, then Paul got to be the second Pope. And they thought Paul was the Greek-speaking Egyptian. So, I mean, come on, folks. It's the first time in America we got a Pope. And it's the first time that you're hearing who Jesus really is. You can't take that away from us. Right? Everybody has the right to know who Ham, Shem, and Japhet is. Everybody has a right to know who Ham, Shem, and Japhet is. Everybody has that right. It's a book. Everybody got the book. More than 30% of the population can read. Everybody can read. It's at the library. It's in your kitchen. It's in your bathroom. Right? It's at the hotel. So if I'm saying that Jesus, the Pope, right, the government thought Paul, who's basically your second Pope, was a Greek-speaking Egyptian, that got to count for something, right? That's a revelation. That's something new. Just like a Pope becoming a Pope from America. From America. A Pope from America. Chicago. And he's saying he need world peace. They up in Rome. They in Rome. When did the Romans, they killed Jesus?
World leaders returned to the Vatican on Sunday to celebrate the inaugural Mass for Pope Leo. The new Pope, born in Chicago, received the official symbols of his office. Before greeting top officials, he called for peace around the world and unity inside the Roman Catholic Church. Chris Livesay has more from Rome.
With the weight of the world aboard the Pope-mobile, Pope Leo XIV rode into history. Before tens of thousands, including his brother, he donned the mitre and the fisherman's ring. A first for a man born in the U.S.
It's a historic moment for the United States, for the Vatican, and for U.S.-Vatican relations. Leading the U.S. delegation here was Vice President J.D. Vance, a devout Catholic.
Followed by the Secretary of State and fellow Catholic Marco Rubio.
This is my last question. Now, who killed Jesus? Because Jesus was safe with Ham and them, and it seemed like it was Shem and Japhet and them that killed Jesus, right?
Just Jews.
So
the Jews asked for Jesus to be killed ultimately.
Okay, so Jesus did.
Romans executed it.
Huh?
Yes.
The Romans executed it. The Jews requested it.
But Ham wasn't there, right? Ham wasn't a part of that.
Ham was dead 2,000 years.
Okay, so come on, man. You know what I'm talking about. The Bible's about three brothers. Ham, Shem, and Japhet.
Right. Right.
But you can't do it. You can't really.
If you take Ham out the book and you have
One second. You can't keep on saying Ham when
Why
you.
can't I do that?
Because
do it. Abraham and them do it.
Brother,
they making a bloodline all the way to the end of the book. Look, before we get back into it, I really want y'all to understand this is important. The book is about Ham, Shem, and Japhet. Three brothers. One they saying is Africa. One they saying is the Semitics. And the other one they basically saying is the Indo-Europeans. You get where I'm going with this situation? The Bible's about three brothers, three tables of nations. So when it says, I called my son out of Egypt, or if Jesus goes down into Egypt and he's safe in Egypt, he's talking about the Ham genealogy, right? Africa. right? So he's safe in Africa. He's safe with the Ham genealogy. And Paul is saying, right? Paul, the captain of the guard, is accusing Paul of being Jesus, the man who led out the 4,000 men into the wilderness, the Greek-speaking Egyptian. Calling Jesus a Greek-speaking Egyptian.